This story is titled, Girlfriend Faking a Family Emergency to Stalk My Ex and Ended Up in Jail Over an Obsession About My Past Cheating. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit! I need to get this off my chest because it's been eating at me for a while. I was 24 when my entire world collapsed. And I mean collapsed. You think you know your life, your family, your story, and then, one day, it turns out it's all just a big, fat lie. And I wasn't prepared for how much it would mess me up. Here's what happened. My mom wasn't actually my mom. She was my grandmother. And my real mom? My older sister, who'd been a heroin addict and overdosed when I was 15. It wasn't like one of those dramatic movie reveals where someone sits you down and explains it all. I found out through a cousin who casually mentioned it during a family gathering, thinking I already knew. Yeah, I didn't. But that's a story for another post. I'm sure y'all will love it. At first, I thought it was a joke. A cruel, twisted joke. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. There were always whispers growing up. Little comments about how I was a miracle baby, because my mom was older when she had me. I just thought people were talking about my grandmother's age. Turns out, they were hinting at the real story all along. I confronted my mom, who's my grandma, later that day, and the look on her face said it all. She tried to explain, said they'd done it to protect me, but I couldn't hear her. My whole identity felt like it had been ripped away. I turned to Alma, my fiancée, the person who was supposed to be my partner, my equal. We'd been together since high school, and if anyone was going to help me make sense of this, it was her. Or so I thought. At first, she listened. Or at least, she acted like she was listening. But then she hit me with the line that changed everything. You just need to get over it. What's done is done. I stared at her, waiting for her to realize how messed up that sounded. But she didn't. She went back to scrolling on her phone like she hadn't just dismissed the biggest revelation of my life. Get over it? I said. This isn't something you just get over, Alma. My entire life is a lie. Do you even understand what that feels like? Her response? A shrug. What do you want me to say? It's not like you can change anything now. That's when I realized something was off. Alma wasn't cold before, not like this anyway. She used to be the kind of person who cared about the little things, like whether I'd eaten lunch or how my day at work went. But after this, it was like a switch flipped. She stopped engaging with me completely. She wouldn't talk about her day. She wouldn't ask about mine. And intimacy? Non-existent. She wouldn't even hold my hand. Every time I tried to bridge the gap, she'd push me away. Sometimes literally. At first, I thought she just needed time. Maybe the news had thrown her too, and she didn't know how to process it. But as weeks turned into months, it became clear that this wasn't a phase. She was done. And I wasn't about to keep begging for scraps of affection. I started pulling back, not because I didn't care, but because it felt pointless to keep trying when nothing was changing. Alma and I were living in the same space, but it was like we were ghosts to each other. I stopped bringing up the things that mattered to me, stopped trying to initiate anything physical. It felt like we were just two people coexisting under one roof, not a couple. Deep down, I knew we were done. The connection we'd had for so many years was gone, and I didn't see a way to fix it. I thought about ending things 100 times, but every time, I stopped myself. Alma was my first love, my high school sweetheart. Breaking up with her felt like admitting that everything we'd been through together was for nothing. Instead, we just drifted. No big fights, no dramatic conversations, just this unspoken understanding that whatever we had was barely hanging on. We weren't happy, but we weren't officially over either. It was this weird limbo that felt suffocating. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. The silence in our apartment was unbearable, and I needed to get out. I went to a bar by myself, just to clear my head. At the bar, a woman struck up a conversation with me. She asked about my day, laughed at my dumb jokes, and actually seemed interested in what I had to say. It felt so foreign after months of being ignored at home. And yeah, I let it go too far. I slept with her. The next morning, I felt sick to my stomach. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back at me. This wasn't who I wanted to be. No matter how bad things were with Alma, this wasn't the answer. I knew that. Even though Alma and I were already broken, I couldn't keep this from her. I am by no means proud of myself for cheating. I owed her the truth. I slept with someone else, I told her, watching her expression shift from confusion to fury. She didn't scream or throw anything like I thought she might. She just grabbed her keys and said, "I'm done." And just like that, she was gone. I didn't chase after her. I knew I'd screwed up, and I wasn't going to beg her to stay. If she wanted to leave, that was her choice. After she left, I knew I needed to get my life together. I moved out of our apartment, got my own place, and started working on myself. I hit the gym, not just to get in shape, but to clear my head. I got into journaling and meditation, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. A year later, I felt like a different person. Alma and I even met up to talk things through. I apologized for what I did, and she apologized for shutting me out when I needed her most. We forgave each other, but it was clear we were better off apart. When I met Claire at a mutual friend's party, I thought I'd finally found a fresh start. She was funny, smart, and didn't take herself too seriously. We hit it off right away, and after a few months of dating, we decided to move in together. When things started getting serious, I decided to be upfront about my past. I told her about Alma, about the cheating, about everything. I didn't sugarcoat it because I wanted to build something real with her. Claire seemed understanding, and for a while, everything was great. But then February rolled around, and things started to change. I thought honesty would bring us closer, but instead, it opened a door I wasn't ready for. When Claire and I first moved in together, things felt solid. I liked her. We'd spend our evenings watching random documentaries or planning small weekend trips to break the routine. It felt easy, but as we started to settle into our routines, the vibe shifted. It wasn't something I could put my finger on at first. She'd make these subtle comments that stuck with me longer than they should have, like, "I can't believe you and Alma stayed together that long. I would have left after the first sign of trouble." At first, I thought it was just curiosity, maybe a little judgment. I shrugged it off. She didn't know the full story, not really, but the questions started coming more often. "Do you think Alma ever suspected anything before you told her?" She asked one night while we were brushing our teeth. "I don't know," I said honestly. We barely talked by that point. Her reflection in the mirror didn't move, but I could see her jaw tense. She didn't say anything else, and we both went to bed. The questions didn't stop, though. They got more specific, more invasive. "Did the woman you slept with know you were engaged? Did you ever think about cheating again after that night? Did Alma ever ask for details? Did she cry? Did she scream?" It felt like I was being interrogated, but I kept answering because I didn't want to hide anything from her. I thought if I was upfront, she'd see that I wasn't the same person I was back then. But the thing is, Claire didn't seem satisfied, no matter how honest I was. It didn't matter that I was trying to reassure her. She'd nod, say, "Okay," and then bring it up again days later, like she was testing me to see if my story would change. Then I started noticing little things. One day, I left my laptop open on the coffee table while I went to grab a snack. When I came back, Claire was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my emails. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Just checking something," she said without looking up. "Checking what?" She closed the laptop and shrugged. "I just wanted to see if you still talk to Alma." I didn't. I'd made it a point to cut off all unnecessary ties with Alma, not because Claire asked me to, but because it felt like the right thing to do. Still, the fact that she felt the need to look through my emails bothered me. "You could have just asked me," I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. She waved me off like it wasn't a big deal. "It's fine. I trust you." But it didn't feel like she did. Nor did I. Then my laptop started acting up, running slower than usual. Random pop-ups I'd never seen before. I took it to a shop, thinking I'd picked up some malware or something. The tech guy gave me a weird look when he ran his diagnostics. "Did you install this keylogger?" he asked, pointing to some program I'd never heard of. "No," I said, confused. "What even is that?" He explained that it was a tool used to record everything typed on a computer. Passwords, messages, emails, the works. My stomach dropped. When I brought it up to Claire, she didn't even flinch. "You must have downloaded it by accident," she said, completely unfazed. "Probably from some sketchy website." Is she serious? I wanted to believe her, but something didn't sit right. I wasn't the kind of person to click on random links or download weird files, and the way she dismissed it so casually made me suspicious. The turning point came when Alma messaged me out of the blue. She sent me screenshots of texts she'd received from my number. Texts I hadn't sent. They weren't inappropriate, but they were definitely weird, like someone trying to strike up a casual conversation. "Hey, long time no talk. How have you been?" The thing was, they didn't sound like me. Alma even said, "This doesn't seem like you at all. What's going on?" I had no explanation. I checked my phone, and sure enough, the messages were there, but I hadn't sent them. When I asked Claire about it, she played dumb. Why would I send texts to Alma? That's ridiculous. Her denial felt too rehearsed, too perfect. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. I'd catch her glancing at my phone whenever I unlocked it. Once, I woke up in the middle of the night to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through my messages. When I asked what she was doing, she said she couldn't sleep, and she's just scrolling through my Instagram. It felt like I was constantly under surveillance, like no matter what I said or did, She was waiting for me to slip up. The final straw came during a promotion party for her friend. Let's call him Daniel. I was talking to him about relationships while Claire was in the bathroom. Daniel made some comments about cheating, telling me about his ex and said, "Once a cheater, always a cheater, right?" "I think it depends," I said cautiously. Cheating says a lot about the state of a relationship, but it doesn't mean someone's incapable of change. Daniel raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. "So you're saying you'd trust a cheater not to cheat again?" I didn't bother arguing with him. Why? Explain this to Daniel without referencing my past infidelity? I knew where he stood, and I wasn't about to waste my energy trying to change his mind. But his last comment stuck with me. "Sasha better keep her eye on you just in case." When Claire came back to the table, I told her I wasn't feeling great and wanted to go home. She seemed a little annoyed, but told me to go ahead and Uber if I wasn't up for sticking around. I insisted on waiting for her though, because the last thing I wanted was to leave her alone with someone who just implied I couldn't be trusted. We got home, put on Netflix, and I thought that was the end of it. But later that night, when Claire came back from the bathroom, she was acting different. She'd had a couple of drinks, so I chalked it up to her being tipsy at first. But then she started throwing out these subtle, passive-aggressive comments. "So, did you come straight home? Or did you make any stops along the way?" she asked. Her tone light, but her meaning not so much. I frowned. "Why would I make any stops? I was with you the whole time." She shrugged, leaning back on the couch like she hadn't just accused me of something. "Just wondering." That caught me off guard. "Where is this coming from, Claire? I've been upfront with you about everything. I've literally given you access to my phone, my laptop, everything. What more do you need?" She didn't answer. She just smiled faintly, then said she was tired and heading to bed. When I joined her about an hour later, she was sitting on the bed with her laptop open. The second I walked into the room, she slammed it shut like a kid caught sneaking cookies before dinner. "What were you doing?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just scrolling through the news?" But I'd had enough. "Claire, this is getting out of hand. You're digging through my stuff. You're bringing up Alma constantly. And now I'm finding messages I didn't send. What's going on with you?" Her face hardened. "What's going on with me? Maybe I'm just trying to protect myself. You did cheat once, remember?" That was it. The trust we'd built, or at least what I thought we'd built, was gone. I wasn't going to sit around and let her keep treating me like a villain in a story I'd already left behind. I went to bed that night feeling drained, knowing something had to change. Claire's obsession wasn't just exhausting, it was crossing lines I wasn't willing to ignore anymore. I thought I'd seen the worst of Claire's behavior, but I couldn't have been more wrong. What came next would change everything. I knew it was over between Claire and me. No matter how hard I tried to reassure her, she was never going to trust me. I'd opened my life to her. My phone, my laptop, my past, but none of it was enough. She was fixated on my mistakes in a way that felt suffocating, like I was trapped in a trial with no end in sight. The realization didn't hit all at once. It was more like a slow buildup, where every little thing, every glance over my shoulder, every suspicious question, added to the weight until it became impossible to ignore. She wasn't just distrustful, she was actively digging, searching for something to confirm a fear she refused to let go of. I decided it was time to leave, but I couldn't just tell her outright. Claire wasn't the type to take bad news calmly, and if her past actions were any indication, I knew there was potential for things to get messy. Then, as if fate had given me an opening, Claire told me she needed to visit her mom. "She's having some health issues," she said, her tone serious. "I just want to go check on her and make sure everything's okay." I nodded, doing my best to sound supportive. "Of course, let me know if you need me to drive you to the airport." Her mom lived a few states away, and Claire rarely visited because of the distance. She'd mentioned before that her mom's health had been declining over the past year, though she didn't share many details. Still, it made sense that she'd want to go in person, and I wasn't about to question it. A few days later, I dropped her off at the airport. As I watched her disappear into the security line, I felt a wave of relief. Finally, I had some breathing room. This was my chance to take control of the situation. The first thing I did was pack my essential. I wasn't going to give Claire the opportunity to tamper with or destroy anything important. Clothes, important documents, sentimental items. I moved it all into a storage unit I rented a few miles away. It took me a full day and several trips back and forth, but by the evening, the apartment felt lighter, emptier. I owned the apartment, so technically, Claire was just a month-to-month tenant. Legally, I had to give her 30 days written notice to move out, and I was prepared to do that as soon as she got back. But here's the thing. The idea of leaving anything in the apartment while she packed her things made my skin crawl. I couldn't shake the thought that she'd retaliate. After everything I'd seen, the trackers on my devices, the messages sent from my phone, I wasn't about to trust her with my belongings. As much as I hated thinking that way about someone I'd once cared about, it felt like the only logical choice. Once my essentials were moved, I focused on securing my devices. My laptop and phone had already been tampered with once, and I wasn't going to take any chances. I took them to a tech shop to have them thoroughly scrubbed. "You've got multiple trackers installed here," the tech guy said, showing me a list of programs I didn't recognize. "Someone was definitely monitoring you." I didn't bother explaining the situation to him. I just told him to wipe everything clean and start fresh. By the time I left the shop, my devices were secure, and I finally felt like I was starting to regain control of my life. That evening, I called my friend Marcus and told him everything. Marcus was the kind of guy who always had your back. No questions asked. "Man, just crash at my place," he said without hesitation. "You don't need to deal with that kind of crazy. Use my spare room for as long as you need." His offer was a lifeline. I planned to move the rest of my things into Marcus's place after I handed Claire her notice. I didn't want to ambush her while she was visiting her mom, but I wasn't going to let this drag out any longer than necessary. Then I got a message from Alma. "Hey, is everything okay with Claire?" she asked. Her tone was cautious, and the question immediately set me on edge. "Why do you ask?" I replied, my stomach already twisting. She took a while to respond, but when her message came through, it hit me like a punch to the gut. "Someone's been messing with my house. Gates left open, pots broken, stuff moved around my yard. And I swear I've seen the same car parked at the end of my block for days. Do you think it could be her?" I stared at the message, my mind racing. It seemed impossible. Claire might have been obsessive, but stalking my ex and vandalizing her property? That felt like a whole other level. "Do you have a photo of the car?" I asked, trying to keep calm. A few minutes later, Alma sent a picture. It was a dark sedan, one I didn't recognize. It wasn't my car, and it wasn't Claire's usual vehicle either. "Does this look familiar?" she asked. "No," I replied, though my gut told me there was more to this than coincidence. "But that doesn't mean it's not her." "I'm really sorry, Alma. I didn't want you dragged into any of this." She told me she'd reported the incidents to the police, but they hadn't been able to do much so far. "It's just creepy," she said. "I feel like I'm being watched constantly." I couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. Claire had already shown how far she was willing to go to feed her obsession. The fake messages to Alma, the trackers, her constant digging, it all pointed to someone who wasn't thinking rationally. Then she added, "I'm freaked out, and I don't want to be here alone." I knew going to Alma's place would only complicate things further, but I also felt responsible. Though Claire was out of town, or I assumed Danielle might be stalking her. Alma was being dragged into something she had nothing to do with, all because of Claire's fixation. So I asked her to send me the address to see what's going on there. When I pulled up to Alma's house, I spotted the dark sedan parked at the end of the street. My stomach sank. I parked my car in her driveway and was about to text her when the sound of screeching tires made me freeze. Claire's rented car came barreling down the street, stopping abruptly in front of Alma's house. She jumped out, her face contorted with rage. "You cheating bastard!" she screamed, storming toward me. "I knew it! The second I was gone, you couldn't wait to run back to her." I raised my hands, confused as hell, but shrill, trying to calm her. "Claire, what are you doing here?" "I never went to my mom's, you idiot," she spat. "I bought the ticket, but I turned around as soon as you left the airport. I've been watching you, waiting for you to slip up. And here you are?" My jaw tightened. "This isn't what you think." "Don't lie to me!" she shouted, her voice shaking. "You think I didn't know you'd come crawling back to Alma? You can't keep your prick in your pants for 1 second." At that moment, Alma opened her front door, clearly alarmed by the commotion. When Claire saw her, her fury shifted. "This is your fault!" Claire screamed, sprinting toward Alma. "Get back in the house!" I shouted at Alma. Thankfully, Alma reacted quickly, slamming the door shut and locking it before Claire could reach her. Enraged, Claire began hurling anything she could find. Rocks, flower pots, even a small garden chair around Alma's yard. "Claire, stop!" I shouted, moving toward her. "Don't you dare come near me!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "I did all of this for you, for us, and you're standing there defending her?" I didn't know what to say. The situation had escalated so far beyond anything I could have imagined. Neighbors began peeking out of their windows, and a few even stepped outside to see what was going on. Within minutes, the police arrived, lights flashing as they pulled into Alma's driveway. Turned out Alma called them as soon as she heard her screaming. The officers separated us, taking statements from everyone involved. Alma showed them photos of the damage to her property, as well as pictures of the dark sedan, parked at the end of her block. She also pulled up screenshots of the messages Claire had sent pretending to be me. When it was my turn to speak, I explained everything. How Claire had been obsessively monitoring me, the trackers she'd installed on my devices, and the fake messages she'd sent to Alma and others. What surprised me most was Claire's response. She didn't deny anything. She admitted to stalking Alma's social media to figure out where she lived, to renting the car so she wouldn't be recognized, and even to watching Alma's house for days. The worst moment came when the officers placed her in handcuffs and began escorting her to the police car. She turned to me, her eyes wild, and said, "I did this for us. For our love. You'll see. We're meant to be together." Her words sent a chill down my spine. After Claire was taken away, one of the officers approached me. "You might want to consider getting a restraining order," he said, his tone professional but firm. I nodded, my mind still spinning. Alma came out of her house once the scene had calmed down. "I don't want any part of this," she said quietly. "I've already deleted my Instagram. Please don't contact me again. I can't handle this kind of drama in my life." I didn't blame her. Driving back to my buddy Marcus's place that night, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I knew things with Claire had been bad, but I never thought they'd escalate to this level. What haunted me most was the look in her eyes when she told me she'd done it all for our love, and the fact that she faked this whole family emergency to prove a point. I realized then that Claire wasn't just obsessive, she was dangerous. The next few days were a whirlwind of police reports, phone calls, and legal consultations. I filed for a restraining order immediately, and Alma did the same. The officers who handled the incident at Alma's house were incredibly helpful, guiding us through the process and making sure we felt supported. It didn't take long for Claire's actions to catch up with her. The evidence was overwhelming. The trackers on my devices, the fake messages, the stalking, the damage to Alma's property, and the worst part, Claire truly believed that what she'd done was justified. The officer assigned to the case told me during a follow-up call, this wasn't just about distrust, this was about control. And when she felt like she was losing it, she escalated. "It's good you got out when you did." I was grateful that the system was working in my favor, but the whole situation still left me shaken. The idea that someone I had once cared for could go to such extremes was something I couldn't fully wrap my head around. Claire's court hearing came faster than I expected. Alma and I both testified, recounting everything we had experienced. I could see Claire sitting there, staring at me with a mix of anger and desperation, like she still believed this was all part of some grand misunderstanding. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a woman who was simply hurt and insecure, someone who had made mistakes out of love. But the prosecutor wasn't having it. They laid out every piece of evidence, every line she'd crossed, and made it clear that this wasn't just a case of bad judgment. This was a pattern of dangerous behavior. When it was Claire's turn to speak, she tried to justify her actions. "I did this because I love him," she said, her voice breaking. "He needed to be reminded of what we have together. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to save us." Claire was sentenced to 20 days in jail, followed by 2 years of probation. During her probation, she was required to wear a GPS ankle monitor to ensure she stayed away from me and Alma. The court also ordered her to pay compensation to Alma for the damages to her property and emotional distress. The restraining orders Alma and I filed were made permanent, ensuring Claire couldn't legally contact us or come near us again. She was also required to attend mandatory therapy sessions twice a month and complete 200 hours of community service. Hearing the sentence was a relief. I felt like I could breathe again, like the weight of Claire's obsession was finally being lifted. After the sentencing, Alma and I had one last conversation. She told me she was moving out of state to start fresh, to put this whole mess behind her. "I wish you the best," she said before we parted ways. "But I don't ever want to cross paths again. No offense, it's just too much." I understood completely. As for me, I took a long, hard look at my life after everything with Claire. I spent weeks at Marcus's place, reflecting on what had happened and what I needed to do to move forward. I went to therapy, not just to process the trauma, but to understand how I ended up in such a toxic relationship in the first place. It wasn't easy, but over time, I started to rebuild. I moved into a new apartment, one that felt like a clean slate. I focused on my career, my friendships, and most importantly, myself. Looking back, I don't regret leaving Claire or standing up for myself when her behavior spiraled out of control. I hope she uses her time in jail to reflect and grow. But whether she changes or not is no longer my concern. Ever since I found out the truth about my family, that my mom was actually my grandmother, everything's felt a little off. Like maybe I haven't been fully grounded in who I am. These relationships, as messy as they've been, have made me wonder if I'm even ready to be with someone. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm the problem. Either way, I'm determined to work on myself and hold on to whatever I still have left to myself. To everyone reading this, if you've made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. If you have something to say, advice, judgment, whatever, I'm open to it. Sometimes it's hard to see the whole picture when you're stuck inside of it.